Greetings and salutations. We're back. I just kind of a quick little check to make sure I'm recording and my audio is working. So this discussion is based around Mountain Blade. I put a couple hundred hours into it. Let's see what it actually says here on the old Steam. 244 hours into the old Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord. And a couple things I've realized, over the last year, two, 4 years, I've really been deep diving into the historical context of stuff. As TV has become kind of more agenda driven and often goes against the narrative that I don't often follow or believe in. I've been looking for other sources of entertainment, so I've kind of gone down the rabbit hole of some of the YouTube content, the historical stuff and the kind of the research of different things. And some of the games that I play, I really like that kind of Rome 2 historical context or Rome 1 historical context. Um, like if I were to say the content that I like historically driven stuff as in a 70 percentile and fantasy more of a 30 percentile, because I like the time that I spent to kind of educate me secondarily or thirdly educate me on the stuff in the world or past history. That's why I like a lot of that Viking Ragnar stuff, because of the mythology that comes with it. You get to learn about Loki and the tree and all that stuff. And or even if it's got a heavy religious context as far as Christianity and the Crusades, the second or third Crusades. It doesn't matter, because it all kind of, we all, whether we like it or not, we all derive from the past, right? We're all linked to the past. And kind of one of the missed opportunities with Bannerlord is that they have this map, but they could have used a map of Europe. And they could have kept the names separate for political reasons, or kind of PC reasons, but kind of kept the names where they were. But if they would have used the map of Europe, that would have educated a large portion of the population on some of this geographical stuff that existed. Because as it stands right now, I really don't learn as I play through this map, and I have 250 hours of playthrough. I don't really learn anything from the map. It's just basically like cannon fodder. It's just white noise. And if they would have put Europe on there, I could have learned, an entire player base of, however many copies they sold. They could have educated the masses as they spent, 1,000 hours, 200 hours on, oh, this is the castle of, Wessex, and this is the Bebenberg, and this is Wales, and this is Daneland, and the part of Sweden. And as these people try to take these castles and take this land, they could have really get a kind of historical context of where this stuff was at, kind of in a general distance ratio, and the different regions and the challenges. And so, like, for example, I always like to play the Britannian. I'm kind of a Celtic descent myself, so I always play the Battanian. And on this map, Battanians are always getting screwed because of their location on the map. They get steamrolled by the Valdinians, and they, are the Sturgeons. It's like back and forth between the two of them, and they quickly get steamrolled. But if it was on a historical context, it would kind of make sense, because it would educate you on their geographical struggle and why maybe they didn't survive as a culture based off of their real geographical location. And it doesn't have to be like locked into a time period. I think if you just threw up the European map, and just kept the same factions, it would be and it happened. And obviously, you keep the castle names or the city names, uh, roughly pretty close. It could be like a 60-70% solution, but it would be enough to where you're going to the Wikipedia and you're like, what is Bebenberg? Like, why does Bebenberg so hard to take? And then you like search Bebenberg and you're like, oh shit, okay, it was kind of there between the Scots and kind of midpoint there on the east coast of England. Okay, and you're like, okay, and then you learn some of this stuff, so you just don't go through life as as an uninformed person because everything that you're consuming is all bullshit. It's all fake, and so I think there's a huge missed opportunity for, and I know they have mods, and they could even capitalize on this and come out with a DLC where they have a real Europe and and charge 20 bucks. And I would totally pay 20 bucks to play this game on a real European map with the correct castle names and the correct kingdom names. They don't have to change the factions. They could keep the factions towards Britannia and all and the Sturgeons and all that stuff. Just redo, make it a legit map where it's not buggy and it's not so. And I would play that map every time 100% because it would keep me it would be like a a mental refresher geographically around the world of all these places, and it would just kind of sharpen those geography skills, and it would have more relevance instead of just the white noise of the current existing map. And to kind of tie into that, there's a lot of history kind of they're using a lot of these mechanics. There's a lot of history there that they're kind of glazing over, right? And there's a missed opportunity for some of these unit types to really if I go in, I don't have any parties with me, but if I go in and I look, if I look at my unit or if I look at my stuff, like my guy right now is using a longbow, and it doesn't get. I'm trying to get to my inventory on here. I've there we go. My guy right now is using a longbow, and it just gives some stats. But the longbow has some really big historic context to it. It was kind of a game changer in the construct of war, and really allowed uh, kind of an arms race per se in the evolution of conflict. And it's not really mentioned, or it's not really, there's not like a Wikipedia link that's tied to it, and I'm not saying that the developer needs to go in there, but it's just kind of a secondary thought where there's definitely some there's no info to this. It's just got some generic stats and longbow, but it kind of would be nice to have it to where there was some secondary info, like you got the tab you can click on. If there was an info tab next to it that said longbow, reigned between 1300 and 1400, and it allowed, maybe that's too much, but you kind of get where I'm going with it. So there's a little bit more depth and context to some of this stuff, and I know these stats are all made up, and it's kind of, but it's a way to kind of bring the uninformed population, because the more and more I meet people that are just, man, they're just stupid. They're super stupid, and they know nothing except TikTok. It's such a shame. I mean, they know is the Fortnite dance, and it's so sad to see that people have no connection or link to the past. And they play a game because it's cool or their friend got it, and then there's all this white noise that goes into it. And uh, I know this is kind of a little bit of a rant, but there is a huge missed opportunity here to pull your player base into the past and get those hardcore loyalists and history buffs, kind of feed that itch that they have. And another thing, like when I look at the skill tree here, um, you have the icon, right? And these skills are tied into the one-handed and the shield one-handed, but there's no reference, right? There's no reference to this. And this is probably one of the most prolific historical documents. Let me find my link here. Historical documents. It's the I-33 or the 133, and it's like 64 pages of context that kind of was lost to history. Let's see if these blow up. I was kind of hoping some of these got bigger. I don't want to change, but they show all of the art style and the sword fighting, and they give context to how to use the buckler and what stance to be in. And there's tons of YouTube videos on the I-33, and the reason why they call it the I-33 is because that's the library reference, or the library card reference. It's on aisle I, section 33 of. I know nobody uses a library anymore, so it's. I mean, I can remember as a kid going, and you'd have the little card thing you pull out, and you look through the roll of index, and you'd be like, "Oh, I-33." And for a while there, it was lost. And there's some of this other stuff, but I feel like it's a huge missed opportunity, because there should be reference to this here. There should be, maybe not on the icon, but right here, one-handed, with shield. There should be a reference to the I-33 manuscript, and they don't need to change any of these skill trees. I know that's a huge pain in the butt to rework and to get the balance right and all that stuff. But if they could just change some of those visual graphics to where, instead of saying one hand and shield, it could just be one hand and buckler, and then make that reference. Let's go back to this, and people will be like, What is the I-33 manuscript training?" And they could go and they could educate themselves on the 13th century and actually be an informed person. Um, and they could just say right here, it could be like I-33 or 133 manuscript training, right? Boom. And then kind of do, you might have to cheese the gap on some of these, but try to use the opportunity, um, to kind of pull in that real historical reference. And it could range 1,000 years. It does not matter. You know what I mean? It does not matter. And in this stuff, they could talk about, uh um they could have a little info. They got a little info blurb here, and they could talk about the pattern welding, damastic steel, not skill. It's not for me to tell them how to do their game. I'm just kind of speaking to that way to kind of bring in a little bit of more information on the historical reference of how some of this stuff is super relevant, and it ultimately was an arms race. And some of these evolutions took 200 or 300 years for them to kind of get to the next evolution of that arms race, from a short bow to a recurve bow, or to a long bow, and how they impacted the battlefield and how relevant they were. None of that is really putting into any kind of context into this format. A lot of that could just be kind of little bit of that information could be pulled in into some of these sub bars up here and some of these icons, and really make a big difference on that historical, and bring some of those uninformed people into the gameplay, and into, so that way when they spend the time, they get a secondary benefit, a tertiary benefit out of playing this content, instead of just wasting 250 hours of their life. They actually have some historical knowledge, and they don't, move on to the next game as a full idiot, a full idiot, and then the next game as a full idiot, and they waste their expanse of their life for that cheap thrill, and never getting any secondary and tertiary benefits out of it, to where they become kind of an expert on geography. Because if there was a real map, and this is my argument, if there was a real map, let me go back here to the right browser. If there was a real map, like this one, I don't know. This is in Japanese, even though they're showing Italy right here. I don't. For a large part of me, doesn't like to mess around. Like, here's Spain, and here's the bottom part of England, which, Wales is right here, and you got Wessex, and eh, if if this was all legit and it wasn't buggy and the map was nice, uh and you could have Britannia right here, and then the Sturgeons would be or the Sturgeons could be in Russia, and you know, and just sold it as a DLC and make some more money, and you know, you could you could sell it as the historical Bannerlord historical reference, right? Or Bannerlord, and just kind of dial it up to where people actually get something. But that's the gist of this kind of rant or this video, is to really kind of bring a lens onto the missed opportunity of really taking a good product and using it as a tool to not only educate and improve your player base and population, um, and also develop that loyal following to where people get into more of this kind of content, and more they learn what the I-33 manuscript, and they're watching that stuff on YouTube, and they're like, oh, maybe I want to go to a reenactment or a tournament, and kind of build that community that often is what allows entities to be ultra successful. But as always, thanks for watching. Feedback is always welcome. I'm always welcome a critical argument, and yeah, thanks for watching.